So I grew up in Germany, and from the 7th grade on until you finish high school, you get German history every single year. And basically every single year you learn about Mustache Man and what he did, because the Germans wanted to make sure that we would not repeat history, right? So we know all about how he came to power. And I also grew up in an area where I was very close to the border to former East Germany, so I could watch East German TV and I could watch the propaganda over there as well. So I'm very familiar with propaganda, and I think most Europeans know European history very well, and I think a lot of Americans don't know history very well, and they're not used to the kind of fascist or tyrannical or whatever propaganda of a totalitarian system, and they don't know how to recognize it. But I can tell you something, you have been psyoped. You've been psyoped, and it's crazy how people don't recognize it here. I guess it's just being naive because you didn't grow up with it, you weren't confronted with it, you don't have it in your history, but I can tell you, Europeans know. But I just want to go back to Mustache Man and what he did. So when he came to power, before that he romanced the Christians, and Germany was at an all-time low after the First World War, and the economy was completely in shambles. People were very, very poor, and they wanted a better life. And so this man came along and he promised them glory, make Germany great again. And he told them that they were great people and that they deserved better. And he romanced the Christians, and he used Christian words in the beginning, and people even compared him to Jesus back then, just like now. And the German Christians fell for it, and they completely compromised. And when I was a little kid, and even a teenager, we still had a lot of people that were adults during the Third Reich, and even some of the older people, even after all that happened, after what history showed us, what history taught us, they would still talk about how he did good things. But he built the Autobahn, but everybody had work, but the cities were free of criminals, but we all were doing better, even though they went through harrowing war years, with their soldiers coming back dead, even though they saw their neighbors disappear when they heard the knocks in the night, and they stood in front of or before their cities in ruins and shambles, living out of ruins for years. They would still talk about how he did good after all that happened. So I guess it's no wonder when the delusion comes, it's so big. And this, you got to create fear. If you want to get people to follow you, you have to create fear. You have to denounce a different side. You have to point fingers. You have to create a common enemy, and you have to rob them of their humanity. And that's what happened during Mustache Man's time. He pointed the finger at the Jews, and they were the enemy. And people all fell in line because you can rule people with fear. And one of the first things that Mustache Man did was that he said that the press was lying, that it was all lies and dishonest, and he was the only one who had the truth. And so people, because they were scared, because he had created such an atmosphere of fear, they saw him as their only way out and their savior. And history repeats itself. Just like Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. And here we are, watching the same thing all over again.